M dashes, N dashes, and hyphens. These are three little lines that cause a lot of confusion for a lot of writers, especially writers who are concerned about being accused of using artificial intelligence because apparently AI tools make excessive use of the M dash, M as in Mary. But we're going to hash out the differences between each of these little lines so that you can use them effectively in your writing. So first we have the M dash, the N dash, and the hyphen, and they are these sizes relative to each other. There are distinctions between how long each of them are, and that is important to keep in mind. The question is, what is the difference between each of them and why do they have these different lengths? Let's begin with the hyphen because this is the OG, right? Now, the word hyphen comes from two Greek words, hypo, which means under, and hen, which means one. Block texts in ancient Greece had no spaces between words, so people always assumed that words were separate. It was only when there was a hyphen present, or what was the precursor to the hyphen, that readers would understand that two words were supposed to be together. In this context, to indicate when two words were meant to be joined, scribes would place an undertie beneath the words. Now, the undertie wouldn't be in between words because there's no space there. They would put an undertie below the two words to show that they were connected. After a few hundred centuries, or a few centuries, you get what I'm saying, Steve Gutenberg, wait, was it Steve Gutenberg or Johannes Gutenberg? Either way, it was Gutenberg created the printing press. And Gutenberg put spaces between words so that readers would differentiate where one word ended and another word began. In instances where two words were put together or were meant to be put together, Gutenberg decided to use a hyphen to eliminate the underties, which would complicate the printing press. Thus, hyphens were placed between words, eliminating the Grecian underties. Now, that begs the question, when exactly do we use the hyphen? In short, hyphens are used to show when two words work together collaboratively. Now, I do have a separate video on how to determine whether or not two words that are describing a noun should be hyphenated, but there's other instances as well. We might say the starting lineup of the Chicago Bulls. In this case, the lineup is one concept, one phrase we're putting together, so we hyphenate the words line and up. E-Man or Spider-Man or any various other men that have some sort of prefix before them, we hyphenate the two to show that their two words are working collaboratively together. Full-time job. It's not a full job or a time job, it's a full-time job. These two words are working collaboratively to describe the noun, which in this case is a job, so we hyphenate those words. And 40-year-old person, right? So oftentimes when we're describing somebody's age, we're not saying that the person is 40, that the person is year, or that the person is old. We're saying that they are a 40-year-old person in this context. If hyphens link words together to create compound words, what do M dashes and N dashes do? Whilst hyphens link words, M dashes, M as in Mary, and N dashes, N as in Nancy, offset grammatical elements in a sentence. However, each has a distinct purpose. Let's work out the difference between the M dash and the N dash. We'll start with M as in Mary. The M dash is so named because it is the width of the letter M. So here you see an M dash overlaid on the letter M, and it is the length of the letter M, M as in Mary. The N dash, inversely, surprise, is so named because it is the width of the letter N, N as in Nancy. And we see when we overlay the dash here, it is the length of the letter N. Now, as you could probably tell as I'm speaking, the M and the N are nearly homophones, and this can create a problem when you're describing them. In my mind, it would have been easier simply to refer them as the W and the V dashes because those letters are the same length as the letter M and N, and they are very distinct when you are saying the letters out loud. But c'est la vie. Also, I'm pretty sure the W should be a double V, but we're not going to get into that conversation today. Here we have the W dash and the V dash, and I might refer to them as such to make the distinction a little clearer, or I might refer to them as Mary and Nancy to make the distinction clear as well. It is a little tricky when we're talking about them because they are so close in sound. So the N as in Nancy dash, what's its purpose? Well, the N dash is used to separate numbers that bookend a range. That's their very specific and restrictive grammatical context. Example, it only took me a weekend to solve a puzzle that said 3 to 5 years. In this case, we have the range 3 to 5 years, and there's an N dash, N as in Nancy, or the V dash, in between the two to distinguish that this is in fact a range. We might also say that Obama was president from 2008 to 2016. Again, we have the N dash, N as in Nancy, or the V dash here, showing that there's a range from that year to the second year. Special note. This appears most often in reference pages when you're denoting the page range for an article or chapter. However, most people mistakenly use a hyphen in this context. I'll see, well, at my job here, I get a number of students come through and their reference pages almost uniformly sometimes will have a hyphen indicating the range of pages, but we do use the N dash in the reference page to denote the space between a range of pages, whether it be in a book, a chapter in a book, or a article in a book, or an article in a journal or newspaper. Our cute little kitty here has noted that there is no N dash button on the keyboard. That begs the question, how do I create an N dash in my text? Well, here's the how-to process. First, you type the first number that you're going to have in your range. Then you add a space. This might sound counterintuitive, but follow me here for a moment. Then we type 2 dashes or hyphens. Hyphens and dashes are essentially the same thing. Then add another space. Then type the second number in the range. Then finally you hit the space bar, and when you hit the space bar after that second number, it'll turn into an N dash, and then you go back and you remove the empty spaces now that you created between the numbers and the dashes. It'll look something like this. Once you hit that space bar, the 2 N dashes will become the N dash. Here we have 2008 space dash dash space 2016. We hit the space bar. It becomes the N dash. Now we have to go back and remove those 2 empty spaces between them. So we have the proper range, 2008 to 2016. The M dash. The M dash is used to offset parenthetical lists of 3 or more, or it could be 2 items that are simply complex, depending on the context. Now, commas are often used to offset parenthetical information. However, if the elements within the list are complex, it will already have commas in it, and therefore we need to differentiate the commas on the outside with the commas in the parenthetical information, and that's when we use the M dash. Example, my sandwich, comma, which has chicken and lettuce, comma, is delicious. Now here's our delicious chicken sandwich. We only have 2 items in here, so we have 1 item, chicken, and 2 items, which is lettuce. And it's a simple element. We don't have restrictive or relative elements describing what comprises the chicken or little details and nuances about the lettuce. So in this context, we simply have 2 commas, 1 opening and 1 closing that. The main clause is my sandwich is delicious, and those 2 commas offset the parenthetical information. We just improved our sandwich a little bit here. So now my sandwich, M dash, which has 1 chicken, 2 lettuce, and 3 tomato, is delicious. Now we have 3 items. As a result, we have 2 commas within the parenthetical information separating the items. In that case, we can't use commas now on the outside because they'll become confused with the commas in the parenthetical information. And so we have the M dashes opening and closing that element. How to create the M as in Mary dash. One of the problems with the M as in Mary dash is the same as the problem with the N as in Nancy dash. There is not an M dash button on the keyboard. So how do we create one? Well, we simply type 2 dashes in between the words opening and closing the parenthetical element, right? So you have your main clause, dash dash, and then you put in the first word of the parenthetical element. No spaces between them. Do not put spaces between them. And then you simply hit the space bar and continue typing the parenthetical note, and then do the same thing when you close it. Once you hit the space bar, the two dashes will become the M dash in the same way that when we added spaces, they became the N dash earlier. It'll look a little bit like this. You have the word that's part of your main clause before the interjection, dash, dash, and then the first word of the interjection or parenthetical information. Once we hit the space bar after the second word, it automatically becomes the M dash, M as in Mary dash. And this is why we don't put spaces here, because if there were, it would become the N as in Nancy dash, the V dash. And we don't want that. We want the M as in Mary dash or the W dash. In this case here, word, hyphen, hyphen, word, space, and you get your M dash. Now I think we are ready for a quick summary. First and foremost, we want to understand that there are three things to consider: the hyphens, the M as in Mary dashes, and the N as in Nancy dashes. Hyphens are used to link two or more words that work collectively to describe something or that work collectively to become a compound noun. M dashes are used to offset parenthetical elements that have commas within them. They are complex items, and therefore, because they have commas inside them, we can't simply open and close that element with a comma. Otherwise, the multiplicity of commas would create confusion. The N dashes, in contrast, are used to establish the space between a range of two numbers. It might be a page range, which is perhaps the most common occurrence in academic writing. It might be a range between years, or if you're a seller of products and you have ranges of prices and such, you might put ranges in between two prices or quantities. But the N dash is a little shorter. And again, when we create, we'll put those two spaces between the two hyphens and the numbers that they're connecting, and then remove the spaces after we've created the N dash. Hopefully that clarifies any confusion that you may have had with respect to hyphens, M as in Mary dashes, and N as in Nancy dashes. And feel free to start a petition with MLA or APA to start referring to the M and N dashes as W and V dashes, just to make these conversations a little easier. If you do have any questions, drop them in the comments section below, and we'll be sure to get to them as soon as possible. Until next time, take care of yourselves and each other.